Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Clear Your Path to New Beginnings with me. That's right, your host, Tory Sachs. Today is a really great episode. Honestly, it's been something I've been wanting to do for about a year, but we're finally, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're finally almost entering the time of spring. So this episode is all about preparing you for the spring season that is coming up. We are about to be leaving winter in the coming weeks, and then we will enter this beautiful season called spring. But before I get started, I want to remind you guys to check out my website. It's www.torysachs.com. There you can learn about all my offerings like Reiki sessions. I also facilitate healing using crystals and crystalline energy and sound with my crystal healings. I also import extra virgin olive oil from this amazing place called Extremadura, Spain. So you can get all the highlights, stay up to date, and get all the happenings there. Okay, without further ado, let's get back to what I'm calling this episode Preparing for the Spring Season. So, when does spring officially start? Here in the Northern Hemisphere, that would be during right around spring equinox. So that would be right around, I think this year it's about March 20th, March 21st. And actually, so I wanted to talk about my colors because you know I'm all about colors and color therapy. So today's theme, I even got it in like the eye situation, eyeliner, all of that. The theme is spring. And so the colors for spring would either be yellow in the yellow ray or green in the green ray. So it's also very like heart chakra-y over here, even though the season doesn't have to do with heart energy. I mean, every season's really all about bringing more love into your life. But this spring season, I was like, let's get into the spring vibes and themes. And so that's why I'm wearing green. I've got this green, minty green shirt. And then we got some green going on the eyes because I wanted to make sure and fully capture the season for all of you guys. Okay, so let's get back to spring. So spring is all about coming back, awakening. I mean, we have like, so let's take it down a notch. So we have kind of been hibernating a little bit. I don't know. I've been hermiting a little bit. I've been going more internal and reflecting, and that's all about what winter is. It is the most yin time of year. So we go from this time of being really wanting to be indoors, not only because of the weather, but also because we're just needing to reflect more. And now we are having spring and it's coming. It's also a very transitional season. So we have more of the transitional seasons like spring and fall, and then the reverse or the contrast is that summer and winter where it's really dominated by either yin or yang. And in winter it's very yin dominated. So we go from winter being very yin, the most yin reflective dark, mysterious time of year to spring. And so, what are things that like make us think about in spring? Hope, renewal, regrowth. I mean, if we look at nature and this time of year, it's when things are starting to bloom or during that season. I mean, it's a number of weeks. It's about a couple months, 3 months, give or take. Um, we are planting the seeds and then at the end of spring entering summer like seeing them bloom. So the things that spring evokes is growth. It's a time of birth. Like if we think about nature and the animals, you know, we're starting to see the flowers bloom, we're starting to see grass being green again. Where if we look to the animal kingdom, you'll see a lot of like, young animals, babies are being born. Like the lamb, we think of like, I always think of spring and lamb. So it's this time of year when we are working to come back and we're starting to bring in this yang energy, this masculine, more light. I mean, once we hit spring equinox, it is when we are welcoming the light back in. It's such a powerful time of saying, like, thank you so much, winter, but now I am so ready to bring a little sunlight and sunshine back in. So we are like welcoming that yang energy, that masculine energy of sunlight, of hope, of rebirth, of growth, renewal, possibilities. It's a really great time for creation and manifestation. It is the time, if we looked at, all the seasons as times in our lives, different spans of times, then spring would be like our birth and our youth, up until about our 20s, because then we'll go into summer, and that's like a whole other episode. But spring is all about birth and creation and fertility and just waking back up after like the sleepiness. If we think of like the animals and those bears, that went and hibernated and really reflected and went internal, and then they're out and they're ready to be out and about. So when we think of spring, also with this transitional, this time of change, I always like to say it is a time of change, but like changes are one constant. Change is something that we take with us every single day. It's just not one time of year. It's like all day, like every day, all the time. And so, but it is this time of change. And it's always so interesting because when I first found Ayurveda, which comes from India, and it means the science of life. And when I first found Ayurveda, it was so interesting because they do cleanses. They do two primary major cleanses. And one is when you welcome spring and you're saying goodbye to the Vata season, which is like all about air and ether and space and lightness. And then you're saying hello to the kapha season. So you might do a khichdi cleanse. And kapha is where it's water and earth. So we're like having that. And it's always so interesting because you may notice like you or other people may start like having bad allergies or not feeling well as we get into this transitional, this like as we're floating in from, I always think of like the doshas, these times of years kind of fighting with each other because it's like, no, like Kapha comes in. This is what I used to think about. Like Kapha comes in and he's like, hey, it's my time. I dominate spring and it's time, Vata, for you to leave. And Vata's like, no, I want to stay here a little bit longer. So that's why it's always interesting, like about 2 weeks before, 2 to 3 weeks before, right around the time when you start doing like a good khichdi cleanse, you start noticing that maybe like you're feeling more under the weather or run down because your body is acclimating to these changes that are happening in nature. Just these things, like normal things. So it might be time like, oh, maybe I'm going too much because you're trying to just like figure things out with the changing of the seasons. When we go through like the changing of the seasons, you could think about like portals opening and closing. And so it is like a time to just, not do anything super crazy, to make sure you're getting lots of rest and eating well because your body is fluctuating and adapting and adjusting to these changes. So in Ayurveda, it is the time of kapha. And kapha is really funny. Well, not funny, but it always made me laugh because he rules Allergies, it might be like we get a lot more seasonal allergies during this time of year. So you might be wanting to incorporate nettles. I love using nettle tea, drinking nettle tea, or drinking peppermint to help me detox and flush out some of my allergies. But you might your sinuses, because kapha rules like mucus and mucous membranes. And so it's like a really good time to make sure you're focusing on that and really honing in on your allergies. It's also kapha, like I think of the doshas of Ayurveda as animals, and so a lot of times kapha will be represented by an elephant, because if you think of kapha, it's very earth, very grounded, rooted into the ground, and so if we think about things that we're kind of moving away from as we enter spring, it's not trying to be as lethargic, but with like having this accumulation of kapha in us from the Vata season, we always accumulate. So in Ayurveda, you always accumulate that next dosha, so that next season. So while we've been in the Vata season, we've been working on accumulating kapha in our system. And so then once we go into the kapha season, or spring, part of spring, we'll start accumulating pitta, because is what in Ayurveda rules summer. So as we've been accumulating this kapha, we have been more lethargic, which has to do with winter. We haven't wanted to move around like we've wanted to be heavier. We've been eating heavier foods, eating foods that have been rooted in the ground to help us create warmth in our body. And so when spring rolls around, a lot of times people will do this thing called a Khichdi cleanse, or other people will do other cleanses, because spring is the time to bring more lightness. It's actually in some cultures considered like the time of the air element. In others, it could be seen as earth, like that heaviness return. But with that, as we go into the spring season, it is the time of cleansing. Now, not everyone should cleanse. I'm not saying everyone cleanses. I typically I don't know if this year I will do one, but I have done many cleanses during this like end of February, early March to mid-March area, just to kind of help kickstart me and my system, and just help like remove and release what's no longer serving me, that heaviness from winter, that lethargic energy from winter that's no longer serving me, as I want to be like more joyful and more out and about and have more energy and have that lightness and brightness that we get from cleansing. It's also the time where we start moving away from eating those heavier foods, because we don't need them as much, with the light coming back into the earth and into our lives. We went through a time of like sadness, darkness, more mystery, and maybe it's not necessarily all bad, but it's just we're going from the darkest time of year to then welcoming the light back in to our lives. In Chinese medicine, this is the time of the wood element. And so that rules the liver organ system, and the other organ that's associated with the wood element is the gallbladder, and so the yin and the yang there. And so this time of year is correlated to the wood element, going back out in nature, being amongst the trees. It's the time when pollen is falling, so that's why those allergies are coming up. The bees are flowering, that fertility, that creation. And usually in Chinese medicine, the color that is associated with this time of year with the wood element is the color green. Other associations with the wood element and the liver could be having more anger, more frustration coming up. So ways to work through that and notice that and be aware. Another video that an episode I'm putting, so you'll want to go check that one out, is crystals to help you with the spring season. So I'm really excited. I'm like always excited, but honestly, I've been doing a lot of research and I'm really excited about that, like to bring you crystals that embody what is this time of year. This is the time where more joy is coming into our lives. This is the time where we want to move away and work through, like I said, frustration, criticism, judgment, and bring more tenderness, more joy, more opportunities into our lives. You'll also notice not just with our bodies, where I was talking about that cleaning. I know I've been in a major decluttering space. Shout out to my friend that has helped me so much on that. But this is the time where we do spring cleaning. So not only with our bodies so that we can feel lighter, but also in our spaces. We might have accumulated things that we thought we needed. We might have accumulated just more stuff that is no longer serving us. And, it's just time to go. Like, thank you. But now it's time that you leave us. So that might be why you are feeling like you need to do spring cleaning. I have been doing spring cleaning for like 2 months. I will probably continue. I've been going like around, again with the help of my friend. So this is also something where if it feels very daunting to you, like a really big project, go like phone a friend or have them come over. Or if you want information, I'm happy to give you my friend's info. She's amazing. Like huge shout out to her. So those are like, this is why we're craving it, like with not only within our spaces, but within ourselves, because it is like, this is what this time of year is all about. So of course you're going to be cleaning not only your body, wanting to bring more greens in, maybe like dandelion, more like upward energy into those things that you're eating, versus where we were very much like rooted into the root vegetables, the heavier things to help us be like more weighted down during winter and get that warmth. Like now we don't need to. We're like taking off literally the amount of layers of clothing that we're wearing, but also what isn't serving our bodies and then our spaces. This is also the direction of the east. So if we think about spring and you're like really wanting to embody spring, it is the time of the east and it's the time of dawn. So that would be the time of day. Because again, if we look at, we could get super granular with things because different times of day and directions of things represent all the seasons. So we just came from night, the darkest point of the day. And then as we welcome in more light, we bring in more light. It's a time of innocence, not only within our lives, but within the season, and a time of potential and creation. That's why we look to the east and we look to dawn for this time of spring. Something else that really embodies and captures this time of spring is the egg. If we look at the egg as a symbol, it really symbolizes spring because it is a symbol of fertility, creation, youth, possibilities, new beginnings, all these amazing things that you really want to cultivate in this time of year. Like I said, I have another episode coming out that's just with crystals that will help you prepare for this spring season. So some things that you want to think about that may resonate for you to really work with the spring season and have an amazing spring season for yourself could be something as simple lighting a green candle, lighting a yellow candle. I love working with candle magic. I think it's so special and I just love working with it. You could wear yellow or green. I'm not a super yellow person, but I do have yellow crystals and other ways that I like working with it. You could, I love working with lemon or citrus essential oils, like sweet orange is lovely for this time of year, lemon. Oh my gosh, because you smell it and it brings back that vibrancy, that freshness, that just freshness is like the word. It just is evoking a little bit more of vibrancy and zest. You know, if we think of lemon zest, than where we were in winter, where it was more weighted down and we really just needed so much. So those are really simple ways, bringing in, like I said, smell. You could eat lighter things, like start incorporating salads or doing some cleanses. A kitchery cleanse is amazing. We actually sell a kitchery kit here that is so easy. So if you want more information, let me know. Sorry, shameless plug here. Um, so yeah, we've got candle. You could burn candles. You could invoke something that reminds you of spring. You could work with a certain crystal. Maybe it's green aventurine, citrine, amber maybe would be lovely. Maybe you're drinking some nettle tea to help you with allergies, allergy season. But is also a fantastic way to really embody the spring season. And maybe you're waking up early to look at dawn and you're facing the east. So these are all amazing ways where you can honor this spring season. And something you maybe want to ask yourself is, what do I want to cultivate in the spring season, and where do I want to bring more potential and new beginnings into my life in this beautiful, amazing season of spring. So with that, I leave you. Don't forget, I am a Reiki practitioner and I also facilitate healings using crystalline energy and sound. And I also import extra virgin olive oil from Extremadura, Spain. That is also, sorry, this olive oil is also something great to help you with the liver, help you do a liver cleanse, help cleanse out the liver. That does about 300 different activities and has these 300 different tasks in the body. So feel free to reach out if you're curious about the olive oil. That's another way to connect you with the wood element, this liver organ that's happening and has its time in the spring season. So check that out. You can also go to my website. It's www.torysaks.com. That's TORYSAKS.com to learn more. And I can't wait to hear how you are working with this spring season and enjoying bringing more light into your life.